Craig, as you all know, we're having a new sales contest. As you know, first prize is Cadillac Eldorado. Anybody want to see second prize? Instead of steak knives, third prize is your fire.
Yeah.
Top performers we're going to talk about today. Going to give you some ideas, some traits of what top performers doing. What do they make successful? I think we can talk about even more than we have on the list. The study that we looked at, analyzed over, I think 30,000 calls, and a lot of different things stuck out on those calls of the top performers. And some things you might be surprised by, right? You always say talk less, don't talk too much. And sometimes when I have the meetings, I go, but damn, I talk too much. But what the study necessarily says is not that the top performers talk less, it's that their prospects also talk with them, right? And so that leads us to number one. Well, we'll jump into number one in a minute. Show sponsor, Virtue Health. Check us out, virtuealliance.com. Got some exciting stuff, new things coming for you. Stay tuned. We're almost there. But yeah, another day, another show here. Hello to everybody in the crowd. If you're listening live, if you're listening on the podcast, check us out every week. Same place, same time, live on LinkedIn.
Yeah, reach out,
Facebook,
ask some questions.
YouTube. The live crowd is in it where it once was because of alerts, right? We can't get your attention anymore at the time of the show. It's very hard to keep people's attention.
Yeah.
Hence the challenge it is to get people live. But we're still going to do shows for those that watch. There's a lot of you are watching on YouTube. You're watching on LinkedIn. Yeah. You're watching. A lot of people watch on the podcast. So let's get going here, Craig. And you're the correct.
Yeah. So an engaging conversation with a prospect, is that possible? Let me tell you a story I had earlier this week. Because what's today? Wednesday. Okay, today's Wednesday. So Monday I had a conversation. This prospect. Zoom call. I live on Zoom and Teams and all those things. And so, total stranger, nice, lovely lady. And there was three of us on the call. And I said, basically, hey, the purpose of the call today is really just to introduce you to an idea that's been successfully used for 20 years. And I know you might think it's crazy that we've been around 20 years and you've never heard of us. And I said, but we sort of fly under the radar on purpose that way. But the fact is, I don't know if what we have is a fit for your organization. So if you're comfortable with it, I'd like to have a conversation with you, right? I don't want this to be a monologue. And so I want to ask you questions and you can ask me questions and we'll just have a conversation. And at the end, you'll know whether you want to have a second phone call. And that's it. Are you okay with that? And she said, yeah, sure. And so instantly we had rapport and it was very easy then to query about different aspects. I said, so tell me about the company. And she was really smart and she knew about the company and the expansion and all this growth. And they had 11,000 employees, 9,000 benefits eligible, but only 4,500 on the medical plan. I'm like, well, now there's got to be a story behind that one. I said, how exactly is there only 50% of the eligible? So then she explained their circumstance and their hiring practices and all the different locations. And so she had a reason. And so then it was easy to segue into, well, I presume you're self-insured. Yes. And then, so there were lots of what this study called switches, right? There was lots of back and forth. I talked plenty. She talked a lot. But I switched it back and forth going, oh, that's curious. Why do you do it like that? And so she was very forthcoming. Right away, if this was a live meeting and you're talking to somebody on Zoom, and they give you the equivalent of the guy who used to, you go into an office and they had a high chair and they found some chair where you felt like you were 3 feet below them and they crossed their arms and they have, they don't want to answer any of your questions. If you've ever had a live meeting like that, yeah, you know what that's like on Zoom. So when somebody's forthcoming and willing to answer your questions. So have lots of switches where you put the ball, it's like, think of it like tennis. It's like you hit it back to them and then you wait for them to give you an answer and they hit it back to you and then you hit it back to them. But don't, you have to nuance this. It's not right, John, it's not an interrogation. Don't make this like a police interrogation.
Yeah, I think we tend to, I even tend to do it because I'm so aggressive. My TV went on in the background here. Let me turn that off. But I think that, let's see if this goes off. I think we make the mistake of interrogating sometimes, but if it's intelligence gathering, right? That's the proper word. Call it interrogated, calling it what you want, but it's an intelligence gathering, right? And we'll go into the two different, types of where they talk more in the presentation and the discovery call, right? So let me just pull up what it says here on the discovery call, what the numbers were. Craig, you find, I think so. Discovery call, top of 33 minutes, longer. So 33 minutes, actually, let's see, longer than non-top performers. And the reason being is because you're having a conversation. It's a dialogue, not a monologue. And so what Craig is phenomenal at, and even in my career now, I always go back to Craig because of the way he can, conversate and spark ideas and things like that. Initially in the conversation is to get them talking, right? That's why jokes work. I'm not a joke guy. If you are, use them. But if you can get them talking in any way, shape, or form out the gate, it warms up, makes them feel more comfortable. So what the study says is that, and it's analyzing calls, switches, right? What are switches? That means I talk, then Craig talks, then I talk. 55% more conversation switches on calls. On discovery, 78% more in presentation. That's an engaging presentation. Many presentations you're trying to burn through them. And even I have to make it shorter and shorter because, there's too many slides. Cut the slides down, get them talking more and cover more on one slide. But getting them back and forth, from a wholesale standpoint, I get on calls and I'm forced to kind of pitch the product and be in pitch mode, which I hate. So I always try to get them talking and finding out stuff and have more of a conversation with them. And it's funny is I find out stuff that the broker never found out. Like, hey, this is the sister of the owner. That's the HR person. And sure enough, we closed that account. Young guy, $65,000 account for a 27-year-old, pretty good. But, going through that conversation with her and getting them to talk back and forth, and this was a presentation meeting, right? But just the back and forth, any way you can do it. Craig's phenomenal asking those questions, but you got to start thinking about is while it sounds good, it sounds great to you. The jargon sounds good. You feel good, like you pitch good. You left the meeting, nothing happens. Well, maybe you didn't let them talk enough. So what I liked about this study is that you still could talk a lot. You just got to get them to talk a lot more.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, John, my sales cycle tends to be a little bit longer. So I can be patient, So one of the things I want to know right away is, when's your anniversary? Did you just get done with open enrollment? Sure. I'm like, okay, so you're doing due diligence for January 1, 2024. That's great. Right. So I instantly sort of want to just have an interview to disqualify them. And if they pass that, then we can go into a more detailed. So we had a 30-minute conversation and we filled the whole 30 minutes and I had to go. So, it's easy to have a conversation with somebody. And once you engage them, they're more than willing usually to tell you, everything that's on their mind. And I specifically asked, you want to see slides? Do you want to watch some video? You just want to have a conversation. She said, well, let's just have a conversation. Great. Okay. Let's have a conversation. And at the end, of course, we're going to schedule a second meeting. They're going to give us some little bit of data so that we can look at specific numbers and take a deeper dive on the next time. And then she'll probably invite 1 or 2 people on the call. And so I can afford to be patient because it's, the 1st of February, for Pete's sake, there's no reason to pitch right off the bat.
Yeah. So the other thing is, so we're going back and forth more, and obviously that's more important. So you've got to structure your points almost in questions and kind of place maybe some traps and things like that to get them talking more. Another one is, and we'll go through them all and just cover them one by one, is pace, speed and pace, something that I struggle with being in the Northeast. I have to talk a lot slower, depending on the part of the country where I am. Craig, I sounded like I shouldn't even say it, but he sounded so slow. I thought, you know, he was sick that day or something when I heard him talking to somebody from Louisiana.
I probably just got back from Louisiana. Yeah.
Yeah. And so about 12%, I think, let's see here, 6% slower prospects, 12%, and prospects speak slower, 12% slower, right? Because if they're comfortable, they'll talk slower. If they're not as comfortable, we're going to talk fast, short, stop, you know, bullet, boom, 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 boom. And don't be afraid of pauses, because pauses, right? You ever seen Wolf of Wall Street? Jordan Belbury talks about be quiet. The first one that talks loses. You've got to be able to bite your. The best thing you do is just bite your tongue, so you consistently remember to do this, right? And I don't look. Some of you are really good and get a lot of meetings and are on a lot of meetings, and you're in a rhythm. Continue with your rhythm. You're doing well. But there's a lot of you that are good and just fall out of the rhythm, including myself, that if you don't have a meeting in a certain amount of time, right? We're coming out of the off season here. How many employer pitches have you had lately in the last 30 days? Probably not that many. Okay. So obviously practicing more and remembering these different things, take notes. We'll release a guide to this on the page and kind of talk about the top 6 here. Right.
Yeah.
And you know, another one, obviously, Craig, is we're not product pitching, right? What's interesting when you hear Craig talk still to this day, the more I hear him pitch, the less and less he talks about the product, to the point where he doesn't even mention what it is through the whole call. And somehow
you've said that on more than one occasion. It's like
their tongue is hanging out. And I go, Craig, you didn't even tell them what you do. Well, I'm sitting there waiting for the punchline because you're excited. And that's what we have to stop is. And I've been on many calls with advisors, and self-funding's newer. I remember when I first really got into all the solutions, and I was so excited, and I didn't close shit that year. My numbers went way down because I was pitching product, and I was excited. And so not focusing on the product, but the outcome and the destination where it takes them, the destination, the problems that it solves, that's the key, not necessarily the product. The product doesn't necessarily matter, the features and benefits. It's really, how does this solve my problem? I mean, a lot of the sales guys that we study, one of the guys Craig likes as well, that's what he talks about a lot is, you know, especially when they want to think about it, this and that, it's going back to not your product and, hey, it does this, it's so great. The problem, and then what are you going to do if you don't solve that problem, right? Because what we're going to do is this, which solves that problem, not the product. So let's see what that number was.
Remember,
top performers, 50% less on the discovery call. I mean, guys, the discovery call, so much less talking on the product. I mean, don't give up stuff. You only drip and drag, very, very minimal. I always like to say is when you're in that discovery intelligence gathering, finding some of the pain, because they're going to ask you the question, right? They're going to set the trap. Well, how do you do it? Right? That's the trap, Craig. That's the broker trap that we all fall for, and we can't wait to say. And it's,
let me show you how smart I am.
You can touch on one thing to make them feel more warm and fuzzy. Well, you mentioned an easiest one in pharmacy, if you can pull something out of high claims and you just talk about that one situation, because it's big. It's one example. You don't have to tell them everything. You keep your powder dry, but you might mention one. Well, you mentioned a $200,000 pharmacy drug on there. Well, would it surprise you to tell you that 95% of our employers get that for free? So if we're able to evacuate that and not pay for it, right? $200,000, that would be pretty good for you. Yeah. Okay, great. Continue with your presentation or your intelligence gathering. That's it. You just got to make them feel comfortable. You can't tell them nothing, but you got to reposition a little bit, and don't give up too much, because we always like to give up too much. But top performers, 50% less on product. And I always talk about this, and I think this is why I had some more success in the beginning. Was I really did well in the first meeting, the discovery meeting, intelligence gathering meeting, data collection meeting. That's the key. You can just disqualify so many people in that first meeting. Above all else, qualifying in that first meeting. That's what we teach our people here at Virtue is get off the phone as fast as possible if they're not qualified. There's too many prospects to talk to in our world than to talk to unqualified prospects. That's the how much in the discovery. In the presentation meeting, right, where you get to flash your shiny object. Oh, John, this is my time. This is where I get to shine off and show everything. 39% less, the top performer. And again, I want to remind you, 24,000 calls, right? AI studies all these calls. It listens to everything. Any of you guys using AI, whether it be one of those things where it takes notes and this, that, it's absolutely phenomenal. If you're not using ChatGPT, which actually I wanted to show on I may even put it on the show today just to show you what it can do. It's absolutely insane. But that's the reality, is 39% less on presentations. And you go, well, how is that? Well, the presentation doesn't mean you're presenting the product. You're presenting the solutions to their problem, right? How does your solutions fix that problem? But again,
can we pause there for a second?
Go.
The problem, right? So one of the challenges that a lot of salespeople have is that they never actually discover the problem. They don't even know if the prospect knows they have a problem. What does Chet Holmes say in his book? 3% of the market's ready to buy right now. Well, guess what? Those people know they have a problem. The rest all have to be sold. They all have to be made. The average prospect you're going to see who's fully insured, and you're talking about a conversion into potentially partially self-funding, they don't know that they have a problem. They've been buying fully insured their entire working career. So if you show up and start right in with a solution to a problem they don't know they have, that's how things end up in no decision. You have to draw that out of them. You have to paint them a picture so that if these are the limitations, how long can you keep living with these limitations and the outcomes and the increases and the cost shifts? And every time you give a pay increase, the medical premiums go up. And so they're actually working for less money than they were the year before. When's that going to impact turnover and retention and your key employees? Oh my gosh. Wouldn't it just be so much simpler if healthcare was a competitive advantage? Can you imagine what if you could do this and you could do that?
I mean, it's so easy, guys. I mean, how many times you got to hear Craig and us say the same thing? We're doing a refresher this year, January 1. We're going back to blocking and tackling the basics. We're not product.
Yeah, I think that's the most fundamental thing.
You can go to your January and February conferences and you can see all the products you want and learn about them, but it's not going to help you sell more. Okay. Because if you can't explain it,
you're going to be the smartest guy who doesn't have anybody to talk to because you have no prospects.
Well, I mean, that's prospects and another thing. And then you get in front of them and then you don't know what to say. That's the real sad part, is blowing the prospect meetings. And there's guys out there that are kicking butt right now. Kudos to them that I know that, and typically nothing against the older guys, usually the younger guys, because they'll listen, they'll try more things. They want to win business. They don't have a book and they're willing to learn. I mean, I just want to go over and show you, if you're not marketing, if you're not knowing what to do, I mean, let me just show you ChatGPT for a second. Okay. GPT. So let me just go over this. All right. How do I, hold on. I got to go to
you just type in that bar down below, I believe.
Here it is. All right. So why would an employer self-fund their health plan? Oh, it's not working. Hold on. I already have it. I already typed it in. So this thing is gaining like a gazillion users a month. So sometimes it's not, or also maybe my internet here. So why would an employer self-fund their health plan? Instantly, we'll tell you. An employer may choose to self-fund their health plan for a variety of reasons: cost savings, flexibility, improved cash flow, better risk management. This thing knows why an employer will self-fund better than most of you on this call do. Okay? So this will dummy-proof your thing when you're writing. If you're a marketer, you got to be using this thing. If you want to post something, I mean, go ahead and use this. You want to come up with questions? Let's see if we can do this. What pain is employers facing with their health care plan? Let's see if this works. Employers face look at this. Several challenges: rising costs, boom, lack of transparency. Geez, it sounds like a LinkedIn post. Administrative burden. Look at this. Employee dissatisfaction. Compliance. Unbelievable. Attracting and retaining talent. Sound familiar? These challenges can lead to increased costs, decreased productivity, increased employee satisfaction. Boom. You want a blog post? You want a LinkedIn post? Right there. There you go. I just wrote it. ChatGPT just wrote it for you in 10 seconds. I'm sorry. Okay. So it knows more about healthcare than you probably know in most cases. Let's see, top 5 employer. What do we want to say? Employer
Challenges.
Top 25 2023 employer challenges. As a 23. Let's see. Here we go. Remote work, virtual management, mental health and well-being too. I mean, Margot, are you seeing this? Don't ever tell me you can't think of something to write. This is unbelievable. I mean, all you got to do is type this in. I'm giving you gold. I don't think you got this at your conference in January or February. Sorry, let's do it. Let's go on because we're on a roll here. Let's see.
Yeah.
Top 5 2023 CFO concerns. Let's see if that one goes.
Oh, that'll go.
Doggle hunt. Let's see. Economic uncertainty. Technology, digital transformation. Anybody watching here want to put something in the chat? Anybody in the chat watching this is using it, have used it? I'm giving you guys gold here. Sometimes I think I shouldn't even give all this stuff away. But
guess what questions you can ask the CFO when you're talking to them.
Well, yeah. I mean, Craig, go ahead, read that and pivot that to me. Number 1, economic.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the Federal Reserve, they're raising interest rates. They're not raising interest rates. There's going to be a pivot. The market's down. The market's up. There's going to be an incredible recession. Oh, my God. It's going to be the roaring 20s, except for the 21st century. What do you think? What's going on in your industry, your business? How is your revenues, your top line, your bottom line, your revenues? Right? I mean, easy. Does the economic uncertainty make you nervous for the future of your job?
Let's see here. How can they mitigate risk? That may not be the right word. Offering comprehensive benefits. Hello. What does it say?
Yeah, well,
promoting diversity and inclusion.
Here's the challenge. They all think they're offering comprehensive benefits, so they don't know they have a problem.
Investing in employee development, managing remote work effectively. Look at this. Staying compliant with laws, regulation, mitigation, proactive street. I mean, guys, this is absolutely gold. All right. I'm going to stop sharing it. I gave you guys too much. That's enough. That's all you get for tonight. Why are people falling over left and right with cardiac arrest? Go ahead and put it in there. Write a joke. A broker can't get out of his own way. I don't know if I can do that, but I gave you guys enough. Go ahead and sign up for it because you got to get on a waiting list. I think they had 1 million users in the first day, which is like unheard of any platform ever. But guys, I just gave you something that you can make a lot of money with. If you don't know how to use it, you think I'm crazy, so be it. But that thing's smarter than everybody on here probably put together. So you want to talk about the top 5, top performers we talked about? Craig, let's go back down. What time is it? 7:26?
Yeah.
Those that aren't watching live, you might want to go on and check out the YouTube channel and see what I just showed you, showed everybody on here. Those that are listening, congrats to you. Put a comment below. Frank says that, yes, I've made money with that too. Good. You can make a lot of money with this. We're going to be utilizing this a lot in marketing. Yep. You want to do a social media post? It's so much fun. We're gonna do let's do a whole episode on it. We'll write something up and we'll play with it on the thing. But let's go back to what other
I think
top
the next
performers.
one is,
you know what I see, Craig? We could go top sales performers, but let's talk about some other things.
Yeah.
That the guys that I study and I follow online that make absurd amount of money. They're top performing guys, and money to make money becomes easier and easier. I realize, and there's a lot of reasons. You understand it as you get to it, and the levels you go up, and each level you laugh at the level before. And these guys are at $100 million valuate, worth $100 million, and they're 30. It's crazy. I don't have to tell you. Craig's son's one of them. But these guys, top performers, I think a lot of them, which I hated to do, go to the gym and work every day. Right? They're creating a body that's like optimal performer. Right, that gives them the energy, because look, as you get older, it's going to be harder and harder. I had a lot more energy inside me when I was 30, 28 than I do now at 39, and you get luggish, right? And so the gym just gives you the ability to perform at a higher level because you've got your body firing on all cylinders. As male, you have what's called hormones, testosterone, right? Your testosterone goes down 1%, 1 point or something like that every year, or no, probably a lot more than that. But the reality is if you're working out and lifting weights and certain supplements, not steroids, but certain supplements and stuff, it'll help lift your testosterone, which will give you more energy, give you a clearer mind, allow you to perform more and compete more, right? I mean,
Yep.
everybody that is a top performer is a competitor. I bet almost all of you on here were some sort of athlete, right? Everybody was an athlete at some point, right? Craig, you know about being an athlete.
Sports is a great entree into going into any kind of profession where you get paid based on performance. That's you're used to that. That's what you were, you grew up on. So yes, any sport, right? So my son Mark, we did paintball. Who the hell knows what paintball is? I mean, people who've gone to birthday parties and maybe fooled around with it, but when we were doing it, it was on ESPN. It was the apex of paintball. And, we went all over the world and played in very, high end competitions and got used to the pressure of being the champion. So imagine, it's probably a poor example, but we were the New England Patriots in our division every year. Everybody knew who we were. Everybody wanted to beat us. The only way our coach let us move up a division was we had to win the previous division. So we won a novice, we won rookie, we won amateur, we won semi-pro. And so everybody knew we were the team to beat, and we still beat everybody. And this is at a time where these kids were 16 to 20 years old in that window, 16 to 21, with one guy in his 30s who looked their age. He was a great Filipino guy. And we were playing against young men. Most of the guys were 22 to 32. And so not only did they know us, we were hated. And so you learn to, under that kind of pressure, you learn to, it's like, no, who cares? No, next opportunity. That's what no stands for. You can't let that stuff bother you. I was telling somebody today, John, I said, I bet I've been told no more than any broker in the last 6 years. But I've probably also written more business than any broker in the last 6 years. It's a contact sport. That's what you got to do.
Yeah, you gotta get at bats. You gotta get at bats. I remember when I was in the field and I would make an error, I couldn't wait to get up to bat to hit the ball. Right? You got to be competitive. Number 6, I think we didn't cover on this one, was shocker. Top performers are both asking and receiving far more questions. 39% more questions in a discovery call, right? Because they're not pitching as much, right? They're not talking about his product as much. And the prospects ask them 40% more questions. And then in presentations, they ask 30% more questions and receive 43% more questions, which means you're doing a good job with engaging, explaining, piquing their interest. You got to learn to stop and pause. And sometimes it's hard. It's a lot harder virtually, but you got to push through it and kind of work through it and be uncomfortable a little bit, because if you get no information on the discovery call from this position of the questions you're asking, their problems, their concerns, so on and so forth, well, then you leave the meeting with no intelligence gathering. And so how do you prepare for a presentation meeting if you don't know all those things that's important to the prospect? If you don't know what they are, then you're really just throwing shit against a wall, hoping in the presentation meeting with no backup. I knew an advisor that I worked with early on in my career, and that's what he'd do. He'd go in one angle, and that was kind of his pitch regarding service. And if they said that they were happy with service, it was basically he kicked himself out in the beginning of the meeting by just pitching that it doesn't really matter. The rates are the rates, Craig. We give the best service, and my cell phone's on my card. And they'd be like, well, we love our broker. He gives us great service. It's like, thanks, goodbye. Okay.
Yeah.
So prepare for the meetings based on what they said, because you can trap them, right? In the presentation meeting, you can trap them based on everything they said which is in the intelligence gathering, which is in the sales, the question or the pain funnel, if you want to call it. But that's what you got to do. So let's cap it off and we'll get off here. So performance tip number 1, top performers make 55% more switches, right? That's based on gauging interest, better questions, better engagement, less pitching, right? Discovery calls are longer, presentations are longer. Again, there's more back and forth. If you just talk the whole time, shit, you can get through it in a breeze. If they're talking, it's going to take more time. You can say it's going to be a 30-minute meeting, but if you have more questions, it's going to be longer.
And,
but
and
I
please,
would,
whatever you do, when you ask them a question, don't interrupt them. Let them finish.
Yeah, let them finish and schedule a longer meeting. Go for an hour and a half. Go for 2 hours if you can. See if you can get them to commit to it, because then they expect it, and they only got one foot out the door thinking about, what's next. Okay. Top performance, don't necessarily talk more, but they get the prospect talking more. We talked about that. Get prospects to talk more. Talk slower, so speed and pace. Okay. Questioning. Top performers ask and receive more questions. And last but not least, top performers discuss product features far less. Features and benefits, right? Create more back and forth. Make your sales meeting longer. Get them talking a lot. Slow things down. Ask more questions. Get more questions. And no more features. That's it. That's what the analyzed AI of 24,000 calls told them. And it's very clear. That being said, thanks for watching. Show sponsor, Virtue Health. Check us out. I think we'll end it there, Craig. Bring them something new, fun. Keep listening, keep learning. Thanks for joining us Thursday night here. We'll see you next week. Same place, same time. If you're listening on the podcast, you're going to want to see this episode on YouTube. Go ahead and subscribe. Hit the bell. It'll let you know every time we go live and a new episode is up. Talk to you soon. Well, why is there 2?
Hit the wrong button, huh?